In this video, we're going to talk about the millionaire, billionaire social media lifestyle. Is it real? Is it fake? As Muslims, what do we need to be aware of? And is the billionaire lifestyle something worth chasing? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mufti Sahab.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Millionaire, billionaire, subhanallah.
I'll just touch on this. I'm not sure how. I know that you've always spent most of your days. You're a very, very busy man to get hold of, and you're doing. And I'm looking forward to revealing to our community the kind of work that you've been doing on international level, government level, etc., etc. But in social media, we've had this trend. It's a social media age now, and our now moving into the AI age where it's going to get even more complex, is this Instagram lifestyle, they call it. Yes. Where you'll see people who are showcasing their lifestyle. So in the past, you've had people who have done quite well and they're showcasing their lifestyle, and people find that quite endearing or motivating or challenging, and they want to keep up with the Joneses, or it's just inspiration. And it started with inspiration, like you have the Pinterest, you have the Facebooks, you had the Instagram, you had now TikTok, you have etc., etc. And people showcase a lifestyle where they're showing their millionaire, they've got the fantastic cars, and the good thing, I guess, in the lines of dunya is in this worldly life, you get a glimpse into what is out there, the kind of restaurants, the halal restaurants, or the halal lifestyle that wasn't available to this community, especially this migrant community in the UK we're talking about, and the US a little bit more different because the demographics are a little bit more different. But in the Western world, so to say, as a broad category, that you get to see a lifestyle that was not available to you or your forefathers before, and naturalized into somewhat of a difficult position. What's your thoughts on that?
No, it's an excellent introduction, because you cover all the complications and all the potential pitfalls, but also address the positives as well that you clearly mentioned there. I think if I just sort of unpack it a little bit, the first thing is successful. One is we want to be successful, but the other thing is, which is now becoming more important, is we want to be seen to be successful. So, and I think we've kind of just gone past that tipping point. I believe that it is now more important to be seen to be successful than to actually be successful, which is an ajib thing, because going back to, in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s and even the sort of noughties and possibly even the 10s, being successful was the most important thing. I want to be successful. Now, actually, I feel, like I said, it swung past that point where it's now I want to be seen to be successful. Whether I actually am successful or not is to a certain extent irrelevant now. As long as I'm being seen to be successful, I'm eating in the right places, I'm seen in the right cars, I'm doing the right sort of thing, that's successful enough. But then that comes to a more important point, which is, what is success? Okay, what is success? How do we define success? And you and I had a long conversation this morning, in fact, private conversation, in which we discussed what is success or what is happiness, because success is actually linked to happiness or contentment or achieving life's objectives, because that's what success really is. It is believed that success will bring happiness. Success will mean that you have met successfully the objectives of life. So as you can see, it's quite multi-layered. You got to kind of unpack a lot of it. It's like those Russian dolls, where you got to keep kind of chipping away and or onion kind of layers, and there's different bits as you keep going through. But I think when you get to the asal, the kernel, the center point, it means being happy. And unfortunately, we have given that power of happiness into the hands of others. That if I get more likes, if I get more, I don't know, retweets, if I get more, I don't know what else is the measure of people acknowledging you on other social media platforms, they're the two that I kind of know, then that means that you are happy. I'm happy because people are happy with me, and I will be sad when people are not happy with me. And that is a dangerous place to be. And that's why we've seen this escalation of mental health. We've seen this escalation of people finding life difficult. And then they've taken time away from social media. We see a lot of celebrities as well who take time away from social media because the pressure of being successful, and especially comedians, the pressure of being funny is actually wearing them down. So that you know, that kind of surmises the points.
Yeah, so like you said there, so what the audience don't know is that you're a scientist. Well, you still are a scientist, but you started in the science and you worked at a pretty high level in that. In relation to social sciences, you've written a book about it, and it's a very big book, and it's taken you a long time to write that book. You're a lecturer at university level. You're a head teacher of a high schools, and it's not. So what we're trying to say to the audience here is this conversation isn't the natural or the standard quote unquote targheeb of, no brother, you should not be, because what we're seeing, me being on that side of the fence or trying to represent that side of the fence, is the righteous or the religious or whatever the terminology, I don't want to stick a terminology onto it, but you get what I mean, are trying to stop us from living life, are trying to stop us from being aspirational, are trying to say your life in this world should be eating the bare minimum and fasting and living in a cave. That's not what we're trying to say here, is it?
No, it's not. You know, in fact, you saw many episodes, and I'm not going to necessarily narrate them all to you, in which when the Ummah became wealthier, more affluent, it became more powerful. It was able to do things which it wasn't able to do in the time of weakness. And just to give a really simplistic demonstration of that, we know the situations which passed over the early Muslims in Mecca, and we know the situations which passed over the Muslims in Medina. Massive difference. Seen as a minority, disregarded, disrespected, felt that who want to associate themselves with these people, treated worse than lepers. People didn't want to engage with them, social outcasts. And in Medina, you saw, you know, within a very short space of time, tribe after tribe coming to pledge their allegiance to this new leader, this new man, and the power that gave. And we saw, you know, kingdoms and empires fall. So, you know, Islam is not about any, or is misconstrued as being about, you cannot take for the rizq that is written for you. I think that this is where the misunderstanding and the misnomer comes, is that your life is not just about satisfaction in world. That's the message it sends, that, you know, all your hours should not be spent trying to better your life in this world, because that's not the true objective of this life. But rather, and also it shouldn't be that you should just sit in a cave and do your dhikr and that's it. Absolutely not. Because like in an earlier conversation that you and I had, I mentioned about seeking one's rizq, seeking one's bounty. And I gave the example of the ayah in Surah Jumu'ah at the end of the surah, which mentions that when the salah is complete, then you go out and seek the fadl of Allah. And also the dua that we recite when we step out of the masjid, which is seeking fadlik, your bounty. So there's no doubt about that. And being strong believers, being affluent believers, being believers in positions of power is a great thing. So becoming a millionaire or becoming a billionaire it's not seen as a bad thing that, oh goodness me, you must sit down and make istighfar, brother, because you're a millionaire, you're a billionaire. That's not what it means, huh? If it does mean you've attained that through illegal route, then yes, of course it does. But if you've earned it through a halal way, now wouldn't it be good that you have a billionaire Muslim? Imagine the zakat he's giving or she is giving, compared to a person who is below nisab. He is now, and she is now, a recipient of zakat, whereas the billionaire is the giver of zakat. Now, surely that position of power is great. We know, for example, that when the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm trying to avoid giving too many examples from his blessed life, but sometimes you cannot help but whenever he would be sending a delegation out, whenever there was a project proposal, then we know it was the wealthy Sahaba that would come and they would give their wealth. Similarly, whenever poor people would gather in the masjid and it was time for Asha, which is the evening meal, the Prophet ﷺ said, who is here that can take some brothers with them to go feed them? So again, it was the wealthy companions who would raise their hands and take 2, 3, 4 people with them and take them home. Now, had it not been for those circumstances, even the Prophet ﷺ himself said that had it not been for the wealth of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, I cannot repay that favor back to him. We know also that Khadija radiallahu anha supported the Prophet ﷺ in the early stages, again with her wealth. So, let's not shy away from the fact that wealth is not something that should be sought after. In fact, I mention a story of my father's. My father, Allah bless him, still says is that money in the pocket, Amjad, is not a problem. Money in the heart is a problem. That's where the issue comes in. In the pocket, it's not an issue at all. So one must believe that which Allah possesses and gives is far more great for us than what we have. But really, to achieve the sorts of things that we want to achieve and to bring about the kind of changes we want to bring about, then being affluent, strong believers is virtually necessary.
So just to clarify there, we're not the brigade that is saying you must live way below your means, you must not wear good clothes, you should not wear, because I think there's it's these kind of conversations in a neutral space that will allow for people, just like a scientist yourself, you've looked at it and you have to look at it from a neutralized point of view and say, okay, what is the benefit here? What is the truth of the matter? And put all those factors together to create a balanced outcome, right? So those brothers who, and you are seeing it much more clearly now, whether it is by the influence of social media or by the wave of these new social media channels or news outlets, or how we are digesting information on a daily basis. We're not here to say that you're going to create the next unicorn, or you're going to become an entrepreneur who opens up the world to a great new product or a great new service. That's not being portrayed as a problem, is it?
No, being an entrepreneur, trying to make change, whether it is, when we're entrepreneurs, when we're business people, then we're either making a new product or we're making a new service. Now, if we're making a new product or a new service, then usually it's going to be something that we believe doesn't exist out there. You mentioned the word unicorn. So we know that a product is going to be a no-brainer if nobody else has it. A service which nobody else is providing is going to be a no-brainer. So when you do that, that is benefiting the people. So when you come up with a product which nobody has got, we all know the ills of a mobile phone, but we also know the benefits of a mobile phone. We know the ills of the internet, but we also know the benefits of the internet. So you can see these technological advancements that are neutral, just depends how they are used. They are neutral. And some will say, yeah, but there's more bad than good. But I guess that's with most things, anything that you can get bad from and anything you can get good from. So in that way, that person, those people who come up with these kind of things, who come up with these kind of products, which we all have in our houses now, I'm sure it made that person rich in the process, but also what it did was it brought ease to the people. Now we can, like we are sat here in 2 different cities, having this conversation, which will be recorded as well, and then made available on another platform, which then means it can reach into the houses of tens of thousands of people. They can take some kind of understanding from this, apply it in their lives. To do that, we may do this over half an hour, but imagine we did this without technological advancements. It would probably take us our lifetimes to get to 10,000 people and talk to them about this particular message. So surely that's a good thing. Now, anybody who did that, made that, invented that, I guess it made him rich or her rich in the process of doing that. But it's a product that the community needed. It's a service that the community needed. And, the list is endless. So there's nothing wrong being entrepreneurial, inventive, finding solutions to problems that people are facing, because it brings ease to the people. It brings success to the people. And we know there were numerous tradesmen that existed in the time of the Prophet, ﷺ, whether they were blacksmiths, whether they were carpenters, whether they were thatchers, whether they were builders, whether they were farmers. And any technological advancement that they did to improve that, that wasn't seen as a bad thing or a wrong thing. That was seen encouraged, and it was a positive thing. And if a person becomes rich in the process, as a true believer, we know that all rizq comes from Allah anyway. The issue which comes up, especially with the social media side of things, is the fakhr that comes with it, the riyah, the pride that comes into that. Look how successful I am, look how great I am, look how fantastic I am. Because what we're doing in that is dissociating this as something that's coming from Allah and ascribing it all to ourselves. And that's why sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we sort of say, look, it's better to stay away from this altogether because there's less riyah if you're living in these kind of circumstances, whereas there's a chance of riyah if you're living in these sort of circumstances. But in itself, it's not a problem, is it?
So what you're saying there is, it's commendable to come to a position of authority, position of wealth that you can benefit other people as well as live a great life. It's when it's the internal battle that if you become an arrogant person because of your wealth, then that's where the problem is. But that
100%.
doesn't mean that the young person watching, or the young lady watching, or the young sister watching, or the old mother watching, or the mature audience watching, it does not mean that you can't have aspiration.
100%. When we know a narration in which a man is sat on the side of the road holding his hand out, expecting society to look after him. The Prophet had words, strong words, and said, aren't you better off getting an axe, going out into the woods, chopping firewood, bringing that firewood here and selling it? So he's teaching him to be an entrepreneur. Don't just sit there waiting for handouts from society. Don't just be a poor person expecting those who are working to help you out. Use what money you have. Invest into a tool that's going to help you. I'm now generalizing. Invest in a tool that's going to help you. Provide a service that the community doesn't have. Go get some wood. The community, there's a need, there's a market need. People want firewood, but the demand is not being met. So why don't you meet that demand? Off you go, chop some wood, brings the wood, sells the wood. That's entrepreneurial. That's a skill. Now he could start to think, okay, why don't I hire another brother? Why don't I hire another person? And I could start paying him 1 dinar, and we can get twice as much firewood, which we can sell for twice as much. Great. Now eventually he owns a wood company. So this is that encouragement, because in his process he's now employing people, whereas there would be those people would be relying on handouts are now being employed. Now your rizq or other people's rizq is now tied to your rizq. So you've now become a suburb of people's rizq. It's this internal battle, which is a very good point that you make. That is where the danger lies. And this is where, unfortunately, people start to think, the wealthy in particular, start to maybe become independent from Allah. That this is because of me. This is not because of, and we stop raising our hands. I'm sure some of the times when you and I have had discussions that a person who is in constraints and difficulty falls on Allah more than that person who is in a good state, because he stops doing shukr to Allah. So hence the reason the ulama may say that, look, it is better to be in that state because you call on Allah, whereas when things are going all right for you, we forget Allah. But now if a person, and it mentions in the hadith that I can't remember the exact words, but a fasting patient person is equal to a grateful eating person. The maqam is the same. Why? Because of the fact that you are doing shukr to Allah in one case and you're doing sabr to Allah in the other case. So as long as the shukr remains, if we're in a state of wealth, then there's nothing wrong with being in a state of wealth or aspiring to become rich in that way, to become independent and protect your family. I know, sorry, last point I'm going to make. I know, alhamdulillah, 1 or 2 wealthy people. What did they do with that wealth? They keep a low profile, and they have helped their families. They've helped their brothers and sisters. They helped so many projects by making donations. Do they have a huge social media following? No. Will people know that they're wealthy? Yes, within the community they know. But has he made a big song and dance about it? No, he hasn't. So now, had that person been poor, he was asking for support from family members. So it's changed so drastically.
Yeah, so bringing those examples to this day and age, because this is what we're trying to address here, and the conversations that we've had is the people who start to, or is the question here is creating wealth with intent. and that intent is a good intent and it's a clear intent. So using that as the framework in this day and age, just using your example, Mufti Sahib, in what you built or what you had built with RG Group, with RG Advisory, using that as an example, so that the listeners can also look at it from a tech point of view or from a marketing point of view, so that they can get used to you a little bit more in relation to your understanding of the market.
Absolutely. You make good intentions, and obviously I'm sure as our videos and discussions carry on over the weeks and months, people will see the bigger objectives that we have, not only to it be a cause of good for getting our community to think in a different way, but also to make our community more affluent in the process. But like we said, through a halal route, and also some of the charity work that we're doing that's associated with RG as well, that will make real changes on the ground in many parts of the world. So that's our intent. We hope that we become affluent and strong enough to be able to make changes as well in the world, because at the end of the day, if that opportunity it is there, then we should seek that opportunity. We'll seek the help from Allah and always ascribe any success to Allah. That's why we say Alhamdulillah, because in reality, Alhamdulillah means all praises are to Allah. Any success that is ascribed to us is only through the graciousness and mercy of Allah. We're not going to sit here and act pretty and say, oh, it's because of our intellect, or because we're geniuses, or because we know how to close a good business deal, or all the rest of it. Alhamdulillah, it comes, mashallah, we'll take that in as humble way as possible. But at the end of the day, we know it is through His mercy that He has achieved that. And yes, we are pushing the boundaries. You mentioned some of the technological advancements we're trying to do with it, especially with the dashboard and what it can and can't do and other things. And we strive in that area. But we don't forget Allah. Does it distract us from our worship? Absolutely, it shouldn't distract us from our worship. Do we believe it's our efforts that are bringing success? Absolutely not. We believe this is through the mercy and the graciousness of Allah.
Yeah. So like you're saying there, in this day and age, apps are a thing that people like to build. Software is a thing that has become, and it's become much more accessible for people to get into business now in this day and age, not just with modern technology, but our communities, as we become a lot more acclimatized to our environment, that we're starting to see that, oh, I can do a business in commerce, I can do a business offline, I can do a business online, I can do training courses, I can teach people from the comfort of my home, I can go out and train people, Muslim males and females, and the environment is opening up. And like you're saying there are some very good examples of people within our communities who are living a great lifestyle. And it's not israf, is it? Just because what happens is that you'll find people who may not have been blessed, is not the word, may not have been given the capability to live or have a great car, have a Rolls Royce, have a 5-bedroom house or a 12-bedroom house or a 15-bedroom purpose-built mansion. The person who's got the 10-bedroom or 12-bedroom and the purpose-built mansion, is that person a wrong person, or is that person just living the bounties that he's received?
If a person, for example, is worth £2-3 million, £4 million, £5 million, that's what he's worth, and he has a 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 pound car, and the reason why he has that car, because he wants a car which is reliable, comfortable, with all the features he wants inside of it, so that he can say wherever he's going, drive around. Why would that be considered as israf in the case where he's got that kind of money? Turn it around, a person who's got maybe £20,000, £30,000, and he then gets a £25,000 car. Now, obviously, this person is literally pushing his limit right to the edge. What's his near? Why is he doing this? He's doing this because he's seeing his next door neighbor or his brother, who's a far better job than he has, who's more, he's earning more than he is, but he just feels he's got to compete with him because he's just going to get laughed at, isn't he, when he parks his £2,000 car up next to his? So now you see the near has changed, the dynamics has changed. So this is all about that internal battle, but also in this other way. So israf would come when someone is spending superfluously, yani beyond his abilities, and also spending extravagantly what Allah SWT has given him in terms of his rizq, in the sense that literally all is being used in a way which he has no purpose for. So if, mashallah, he buys a 10-bedroom house or something, and it's only him and his wife, And the question then comes up is, okay, what is this brother using the other 9 bedrooms for? And if he says, well, you know, I just have them because I could afford it, so I bought this house, then questions will be brought in that, okay, you could have easily bought a house which was 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, which would have met your objectives. And that other money you could have used to help another brother or do this or do that. So it really depends on all, you know, it's a more deep conversation that needs to be had, what his personal circumstances are, what's his intentions and things of that nature. Having said that, the last point that you raised there, when Allah SWT has given bounties, there is, in fact, we are encouraged that we should proclaim the bounties, but we live within our means. What we're seeing is that people who have low means are trying to now live this lifestyle of this other brother who Allah, alhamdulillah, Allah SWT has blessed. And they're trying to compete. And now this is wrong, because if Allah's blessed this brother, make dua for him and ask for something similar. May Allah open the doors to your bounty to me as well.
So what you're talking about there is the points that we talked about: creating wealth with intent and spending wealth with confidence.
Absolutely. This, you know, it's not sinful that a person is, you know, buying a gift for somebody that they love. So, you know, if Allah SWT blesses you with wealth and you spend £1,000 in buying a gift for a child, then you're given that as a hadiyah. You know, it's not you've done something wrong here. It's not something you should think of, oh, you know, this is sinful that I'm doing. Sinful will be, and this is where it's a whole area of what constitutes israf. You know, these are all relative terms. We spoke about early this morning about being rich, being poor. These are relative terms. A multimillionaire, what is considered as a meal? You know, for me, a meal, you know, a £5, £10 meal might be, oh, that's, you know, that's quite an expensive meal. But a multimillionaire, they might think, you know, a £40 meal is okay, you know, because he's living in his own circumstances. Like, for example, when we travel to the Indo-Pak world, we'll see that spending, you know, a tenner is you know, equivalent to, when we convert it to takas or convert it to rupees, is, you know, it's all right. But everybody else in the country will look at us like, my goodness, this guy just spent 4,000, you know, rupees on a meal, and they'll be shocked. But we're living within our means. That's not israf.
That's a very good point, because I think this kind of conversation is not touched upon. It's a little bit taboo, where we skirt around the subject. But you being a scientist and a mufti as well, and having your own schools and stuff, it allows you to look at that from a pragmatic point of view and say, no, let's look at all the moving parts. Let's not rush to judgment. Let's figure out what are these people trying to do? What are they trying to earn? Like, for example, just in the couple of the meetings that you've had talking to conglomerates, companies that are worth billions of pounds, do you feel out of place talking to companies? Because for yourself, just using as an example for the audience, is look at all the books behind this guy. This person should be sat in his room reading, teaching, and then go home, have his little bit of food, and then come back to the mosque. He shouldn't leave this parameter. But then here you are sitting on board meetings or with multinational, international brands, international companies. You've sat in just with those over the past 4 or 5 months. We may altogether to companies that are worth 10, 20, 30 billion combined, right?
I think this is where we have to kind of move away from our own sort of inferiority complexes that we may have, that we feel uncomfortable sitting in these sort of discussions and whatever, we kind of feel out of place. And, you know, just to touch on that last question as well, is many of our kind of forefathers and many of our connections to communities that were exceptionally poor. So when we touch upon conversations of the ulama that were before us, and maybe a generation or 2 generations before, then they lived, you know, tended to come from village backgrounds, living in extremely, you know, constrained circumstances. So that same conversation is being had with, and sort of trying to impose itself, so to speak, now say living within the West. And it just doesn't sit right, you know, because it's not right. So, you know, so that's the point that needs to be made as well. So this inferiority complex, we shouldn't have that, whether it's the qualifications that we have, whether it's the experiences we have. That's why it's important to have diverse experiences, have diverse qualifications, so you sit with confidence. I always give the example of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, that, you know, when you try to understand why did Allah send Musa alayhi salam to be raised by his enemy Fir'aun? What's the hikmah in that? How do you make sense of that? Yani a person who believed he was God, a person who denied the existence of God, somebody who set himself up as an equal to God. Why would Allah send his most beloved human to someone like that? What kind of tarbiyah can a Fir'aun do to a prophet? You kind of left a little bit sort of confused by that. And then obviously he leaves later on in life. There's that a fight that breaks out, and Musa has to leave, and then he returns many years later, in his sort of later autumn period. And my kind of extraction of that understanding is that to remove that inferiority complex, that when he returns to Fir'aun's kingdom and he raises his staff against the very man who he looked at probably as a father figure, but not exactly as a father, to the very princes now who sit on those thrones in Fir'aun's council, to be able to look them in the eye with confidence. Why? Because he was better than them at chariot racing, he was better than them at wrestling, he was better than them in arithmetic, he was better than them in linguistics. He was able to do that. So alhamdulillah, he could speak with great confidence. For him to go as a shepherd, which is what he did do, he went as a farmer. If you remember, he spent 10 years as a farmer. For him to go as a farmer, dressed in the type of clothing he had on, and then to try to compete with this great council of dignitaries and highly educated people, rich people, there would have been that psychological inferiority complex. But in order to put that to bed, put that aside, Musa alayhi salam goes in with a sense of strength. Yet from a so-called perceived position of weakness, he's going with some strength, and as we know the outcome of that, he succeeds in that. So we, those scholars, alhamdulillah, who have had experience to be able to engage, and we need, obviously, the Prophet Islam engaged with the world. He did not shun the world. He did not. The only time he went into Ghari Hira was before revelation. After that, he did not shun the world. He sat with many dignitaries that came to meet him in order to discuss things, in order to discuss allegiances. He set up a bustling trading in Medina. He didn't shy away from public life. He was in the public life. And therefore, it is important that ulama are also in the public life. As challenging as it is, and don't get me wrong, it is challenging because we're coming from a position of weakness in the sense that we're not controlling the narrative, whereas the Prophet ﷺ controlled the narrative. So there's slightly different dynamics there. But even then, it's important that scholars are engaging in order to give us solutions to the everyday problems that we face.
Yeah, because what I found, and from my own personal experience watching you in action, talking about that particular company that they've sold 4 billion over the last 4 years, or last couple of years, and you to look at their terms and conditions and say there's something wrong here. How did that make you feel in relation to, because you're talking to somebody who's got a huge team, they're in different countries, and you're looking at the T's and C's and saying something's not right here?
I know, it must be the Yorkshire water or something that we don't know when to walk away from a fight. I think it's I guess it's the upbringing. I guess it's the kind of the experiences you have. I think when you have confidence in what you believe in, and you believe, that what you're saying is not. It's like having that belief in what you believe in, and it sounds strange. It's having trust in what you believe in. Then I think you can be more confident in what you have to say. And we found people listen, and when you make a good rational argument for it, and you can argue it, we know that some of our contracts, or all of our contracts rather, were seen by capable solicitors, and there were hardly any changes they made to it. They just said, this is also legally valid. So these are areas which are contract law. So alhamdulillah, when we have that opportunity to develop our skills in that way and learn about those sort of things. So you'll see even behind us here, you'll see books on sort of contract law as well, auditing and assurance. So it's not just that we just focus on the sort of dini books, but we need to understand the science of auditing. We need to understand the science of assurance, and even the world of banking. So these FT guys that we have down here. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not just that we have an understanding of what the Sharia says about things. We need to understand is how the world works in those sort of things at the moment, so we can have answers to. So I think if we're continuously educated, we're aware of things, then we're not speaking out of terms.
No, because that's quite. I think the audience, if you found this quite interesting, please do comment below, because we've not heard these conversations before, and I'm talking about it from myself, that I've been blessed enough, and I feel eternally indebted to my friends who are scholars, and to the faith institutes that I've had the opportunity to be around. But seeing yourself on the field in action, we've spoken to banks, right? And you've spoken to banks, and you've taken their T's and C's, whether 30-page, 40-page, 50-page documentation. You've spoken to the CEOs of banks. You're talking to the senior managers of banks, while they will sit on their very expensive desks with their great titles, and they are in the position of authority, right? They've got billions in their accounts. They are transacting hundreds of millions, if not hundreds of billions, across the globe, and that size of company. And you're listening to them and saying, yep, but you're not talking to them alien. You're not saying, here's Bukhari Sharif, and in Bukhari Sharif, this is what is said. You're saying, I've read your books, I've read the law, I've understood your contracts, and inside this contract, in clause B or page 157 on clause C, your terminology says this, and I've seen you calmly just address it. And it's gone from, on that particular one, it's gone from the UK bank to a Eastern European, or was it an African bank within that region, to back to the European headquarters, back to the US headquarters where the bank was. In that time, you've kept your decorum all the way through and said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And what happened at the end, I was surprised. I can remember the day when I got the call to say the bank has said you're right, and we've approved it.
Yes.
And I've seen that again in relation to when you were sat and we were talking to the heads of certain banks, and spot the person who quote unquote isn't usually at the table.
Yeah.
It's usually the guy in the suit with the shirt and the tie, even if his name is Muhammad and Khan, or if his name is Abdullah, he's sat and he's sort of blends in to some degree, right? While you come on, the initial conversations are, who's that guy? But then,
is he on the right meeting?
Are you in the right meeting, sir?
Are you in the right meeting, sir?
Coffee rooms around the corner. No, I'm the founder, and these are the T's and C's, and this is what we're doing, and these are the market shares. And as you start to speak, they think this guy knows what he's talking about. And I've seen it now in several meetings where you were in the past as a young, not young now, but I'm talking about in the past, young business person or working on behalf of an organization. You're going in and you're thinking, this is an important factor, and I've got to listen to this guy, and there's no wiggle room.
Yes.
And you're just worried as a young person, will I be able to get my namazi? Will they give me a salah space? Or will I need to run to the next car park and pray then come back and act as if nothing's happened?
Yes.
While you're coming in, sitting down on the table, and you read the books on the law.
I think that's a very important point you raised there, because we're having conversation as equals now, not as inferior. And I think that's the shift, is to be having these conversations as equals. And in order to have these conversations as equals, not only must we articulate it in a certain way, we've got to back up that nice words with ilm, with knowledge. Otherwise, it's you can easily spot a charlatan after a while, like, okay, he's just chatting it, he just knows a few words and that's it. So that's why it's very important, and that's to give confidence to our community as well, that we're in safe hands, or alhamdulillah, this person seems to be trying his utmost to make sure that the systems are good and things are right. But also then it makes the groups that we're working with think that little bit extra, that okay, we have something successful here, but in order to do it, we need to do it right. And right is as defined as how this person is defining what right is.
Yeah. So bringing it back to we're just pulling this back down to the topic of millionaire, billionaire lifestyles. What assuming you're saying now, and I'll let you clarify that so that the audience, because I know what's going to be going through, in my personal opinion, going through someone's mind is, he's actually saying, I can do this business. He's actually saying, do you know what? You've done well, carry on doing it. Earn the million,
Absolutely.
earn the billion.
Absolutely. If Allah gives you strength, Allah gives you tawfiq, absolutely. Yani, work towards that, strive towards that, work hard. I'm just going to close that door. Excuse me.
So while Mufti is closing the door, it's quite interesting what he's saying there.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, if Allah gives the tawfiq, gives the ability, then absolutely. We have been taught to earn a living without any shadow of doubt, and to be affluent enough to support ourselves, support people around us. There is nothing wrong in that. It shouldn't be seen as something problematic. If it comes at the cost, so the two things where it becomes problematic is that internal thing which Umar you raised, which was very important, and also this kind of belief that this is down to me, I'm making this happen, and that again is an internal thing. So really it is this internal battle that we've got to face, that my priority is my faith, my priority is the worship of Allah. However, literally when I'm exiting out of the masjid, I'm being instructed by Allah to go seek my fadl. Literally, when I'm leaving from Jummah, I'll quote the verse to you. When Allah SWT says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha nudiya lis-salati min yawm al-jum'ah fas'au ila dhikrillah." That hasten towards the dhikr of Allah. Hasten towards the dhikr of Allah, and then after that, wadharul bay, leave business. So you hear the adhan for Jummah. So this verse is about business. That when you hear the adhan for Jummah, then hasten towards fas'au ila dhikrillah, wadharul bay, and leave your business. However, what are the next part? ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. This is better for you if you only knew. فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. And once the salah is complete, فَانْتَشِرُوا, go out, spread yourselves upon the earth, doing what? وَابْتَغُوا, seeking min fadlillah, seeking the bound. You are being, and this comes on a mustahab, this is not an amr, even though it's an order verb, a verb of imperative. It's not actually saying it's fard that you have to go, but it's actually saying is that pause you had, that you had to abandon business, is now over. Now go seek the bounty of Allah, go do business, go earn a living. And then finally, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. But don't forget, even whilst you're doing your business, remember Allah a lot, in order that you will be successful, meaning your business will be successful and also life will be successful. So absolutely, there's no restrictions. The restrictions are already quite clear in what we're permitted to trade in and what we're not permitted to trade in, and the manner we're permitted to trade, and not all that's been made absolutely crystal clear. And now it's a case of aspiring to that. The only, like we said, is the touching points that we've made is that don't make this your sole goal in life, because your goal in life is worshipping Allah. But for somebody who is required to earn for the family, then working and earning is actually a worship in that sense.
Oh, thank you very much. So if anybody's got any more questions, Mufti Saab's available. And if you've got any ideas on the next topics, like we're saying, millionaire lifestyles are not the problem here. It's the internal message that you've got within yourself that's leading you to good or leading you away from good. And it's understanding those two, but having the Rolls Royce, having the Ferrari and the Porsche or the Bentley, or going on a Dubai holiday or a holiday that's quite exciting and it gives you a lot of happiness because you've been blessed to be able to do that, it's not the problem. Thank you very much, and we shall see you soon. Like, share, subscribe, and keep doing what you need to do.